We'll just allow for a few more people to join. We lost someone. Okay. No mai haere mai, tēnā koutou katoa, ko Gillian Dudgeon tōku ingoa. Hi, I'm Gillian. I am a Deputy Chief Executive at the Tertiary Education Commission, and Bridget Murphy and I are going to take you through this presentation, which is about the network of work-based learning provision. So that really doesn't sound very sort of industry-friendly language, probably, in terms of the way that we describe things in education. So there have been a whole pile of changes, as you'll be aware, in the vocational sector that are proposing to start next year. And a number of those are about ensuring that industry has a much stronger voice into the education and training sector. So in this presentation, we're going to give you some information about the upcoming changes and what they mean for industry. And we're also going to explain the information that we're seeking from you in the future about what we call the network of work-based learning. And the key thing is you've got choices, and we want you to have a say in the providers or organisations that support your industry with work-based learning. Not all industries are the same, and so we're really keen to understand and take some time to understand what is going to work best for your particular industry. So as an example, you might want one national organisation supporting you that provides consistent programs without any choice or alternative ways of doing things. But for others, you might want some bespoke regional provision done. You might like some alternatives and different ways to support work-based learning. And so this is a sort of introduction session, because TEC, one of the roles we have is to fund the people that provide that support to your employers and to learners. And we want to make sure that we are funding organisations that are meeting industry needs. Now, in terms of the presentation, we've got a Q&A function. So don't use chat, because it's turned off. Use the Q&A, and then at the end, Bridget and I will be able to go through your questions. So through this, we're going to take you through and try to explain the sorts of things that we're looking for. So what do these vocational changes mean for industry? Well, the first thing is the changes come into effect as at the 1st of January next year. So they're not happening right now, but what we're doing now is we're preparing for the changes that can start in January next year, when the necessary changes to legislation happen sort of in October, November this year. For industry training, so that's for apprentices and industry training, that means that you have choices about the types of providers that will be able to support you. So it could be a polytech, it could be a wānanga, and it can be a private training organisation. Currently, this year, we have about 80% of work-based training delivered within Te Pūkenga through the 9 work-based learning divisions, which were previously ITOs. So you'll recognise BCITO or MITO or EarnLearn or Connexus. Those are names that you're probably, primary ITO, names that you're familiar with. So currently there are 9 business divisions within Te Pūkenga. In the future, as part of Te Pakenga being disestablished, there are choices about how that 80% of provision can be delivered. Now, currently, we've got about 20% of work-based division is also provided by the PTE sector. By December 2027, all work-based learning will have moved out of ISBs. So as part of this, the changes that are happening, we've currently got workforce development councils, and from January, we're going to have industry skills boards, and workforce development councils will all have been disestablished. Industry skills boards' key job are to be those independent standard setters that deliver your qualifications, endorse programs that are delivered by providers to make sure that they deliver the skills that you need in the workplace. But for the next 2 years, they've been given a special additional function. As part of the disestablishment of Te Pakenga, those 9 work-based learning divisions are being moved and attached to an industry skills board for a period of up to 2 years and no longer. And the rationale for that is to enable industry to have a say and to be facilitating that process to work out where that provision is going to be delivered in the future. Now, we know for some industries, construction and around BCITO and for MITO, at the moment there are industry groups getting together and looking at how they could pick up basically all of BCITO and move it into a private training organisation and continue on in the future. But for other industries, those work-based learning divisions will sit within the ISBs for a period of up to 2 years. And they can take their time to work out where they go. So it might be lifting and shifting the whole of it, or it might be starting to allow providers to take over some of that delivery. And so there's a 2-year transition period through to December 2027, whereby those decisions can be made. There's no rush, there's no panic. As at 1st of January, all of your apprentices, all of your industry trainees that are currently looked after by one of those work-based learning divisions within Te Pakenga will still be looked after by one of those divisions. It's just that those divisions will now report to an ISB rather than to the Te Pakenga Council. So, as I said, in terms of the, next slide, in the short term, employers and work-based learners will see very little change. We will see qualification development move from workforce development councils to these industry skills boards, and there are going to be 8 of those. There are going to be new polytechs stood up. So at the moment, Cabinet agreed to 10 polytechs being stood up in January next year, but there may be some others that come on later during the year, and they will stand up as independent organisations with their own council, which is based in their particular region or for open polytech across the country. As I said, if your work-based learning, so apprentices and trainees, are supported by a PTE at the moment, that continues, no change at all in that. But if your work-based learning is delivered by the work-based learning divisions or the old ITOs within Te Pakenga, those are all moving out, and they will now report into Industry Skills Board, but they're lifted and shifting, so all of the staff, all of the people move, all of the systems, so you should see no changes on the ground with respect to that. But then there are choices, as I talked about, and the system will continue to change through 26 and 27. Do we want to pop on to the next slide, Courtney? Right, so if we roll forward to January 2028, the system will look quite different. ISBs will no longer have any work-based learning attached to them, and in fact they won't be allowed to have anything at all to do with training apprentices or trainees. They will go back to their core function of standard setting and developing qualifications and endorsing providers, because all of those decisions will be made about where work-based learning is delivered. By 2028, Te Pakinga, or the New Zealand Institute of Skills and Technology, will no longer exist. So everything will have moved out of Te Pakinga. There'll be a range of 10 to 14 probably fully independent polytechs operating around the country. Some of them will be completely independent, and for some of them they'll be part of a federation of which the Open Polytech is the anchor. It's a bit like a safety net. It provides them some additional support and access to resources to ensure that they can continue to deliver and support the communities that they're based in. And by then, all work-based learning will be delivered by a PTE, a Polytech, or a wānanga. So that transition will have been completed at that point in time. And so Bridget's now going to take you through and talk a little bit more about the network of work-based learning provision, and why we're really keen to hear from you over the coming months and the next year or so. Bridget.
Thanks for that. So the slides that we're going through tonight, we will make available to you. And we do think that potentially for industry, these may be good prompts for conversations that you're going to be having about what you need in the years ahead. So network of work-based learning provision is a term that we're using to say, what will the network of providers and provision look like in the future? How many providers? Where are they? What do they offer? All of those kinds of things are what we're trying to build a picture of. And in this new system, we want that to be led through industry voice as well. So there's some questions on this slide that may be useful for your discussions, thinking about whether you need national providers, local providers, niche providers. These are all good discussion topics for the future. As we move in, we see a real role for industry in this new network of work-based learning provision. If you can move on to the next one, Courtney. Thank you. And another, yep, that's it. So what we want from industry, and when I say industry, I mean industry associations, employers, large employers, small employers, communities of employers. We want to hear what is needed to serve your needs. So it's really important to have a think amongst your peers about what it is that is required and what's going to suit. While we have sometimes heard that a network that has a lot of competition can be good, we also want you to just consider about whether that's entirely financially viable going forward, knowing how big the New Zealand sector is. In the end, funding decisions are made by TEC. So there are providers who can deliver work-based learning that are not funded by TEC, but when they are, that decision will sit with us. But we do want to make decisions that are informed by industry wherever we can. If we can go on to the next one, Courtney. So what sort of things can you tell us? So we want to know, what is that mix between national consistency and regional responses? What works and what doesn't? Where is it appropriate to have a niche training provider? Where is it best that smaller provision is wrapped up with larger provision to stay viable? We know that some sectors are so small they can only really support one provider. And so that's a really important thing to keep in mind. Other sectors are really quite large and could benefit from different types of provision. So there's some really great discussions, I think, that can be had around that. Going on to the next one, Courtney. So what we really want to encourage industry to do is to start having discussions now. The majority of industry engagement about this network of provision will be happening in 2026, but there may be a few industries that we contact this year, and they're ones that are looking to make change earlier. Like Gillian said, the transition period takes us right to the end of 2027, so not everything needs to happen in a hurry. Even though the new vocational system starts on the 1st of January 2026, it will continue to change and evolve throughout that period and beyond the transition period. So don't feel that a decision has to be made quickly necessarily. Where there is a particular provider or provision that we need to address quickly, we may go out and consult with industry more quickly, but in the most part, this will be an ongoing process. And the next one. So one of the things we would encourage is to focus your considerations about what the network looks like rather than a specific provider. This is sort of an important way of maintaining neutrality, and it's an incredibly tricky thing in New Zealand, one, to manage conflicts of interest, but two, because often a provider may deliver very well in one area, but there are other concerns that you may not be aware of. So from TSC's point of view, we will not fund providers that are not financially viable, that are not getting good results for learners, that are not meeting quality assurance requirements. And some of that may or may not be visible. And so recommending a specific provider can be quite problematic. We would say to providers that are joining this webinar as well, to try and be patient and give industry time to develop their view about what they want from a network provision. We know that work-based learning provision is a new opportunity and providers are excited to be part of it, but we want to take time and do this respectfully, and we don't want industry to feel that providers are knocking on their doors and trying to move them towards a decision too quickly. Next one, Courtney. And just a slide that's useful for you to be aware of, and it relates to what I've already said, that we do consider a range of different factors when we fund. So we do sometimes make a decision that industry may not be understanding fully why that's happened, and there's good reasons for that, but that the industry view is important and that we are still very interested in that and the information that we'll get from ISPs once they stand up, in the same way that WDCs have helped us as well. That's the end of our presentation, so we can start leaping into questions and answers now, if there are any around.
Not a single question.
We got so many this afternoon that we could barely keep up with them, so that was tricky. If you can put your question into the Q&A, that would be ideal, because the mics are disabled on this call.
Bridget and Gillian, we do have 3 questions in the Q&A queue.
I can't see them.
Oh, that's no worries. I'll read them out for you. So the first one's from Chris. Is the funding allocation for work-based learning relative to polytechnics going to remain the same?
Yes, so the decision on funding for work-based learning was made as part of budget this year, and so the rates have changed across all of